Well, some big news yesterday in the Kansas Reflector. This came down. Laura Kelly forming a PAC to support what she is calling moderate GOP and Democratic legislative candidates. And the name is just killer. Middle of the road PAC. Oh, my goodness. Dustin Morris, local political consultant, and he was elected last night as the Kansas Young Republican chairman. So congratulations on that, by the way, Dustin. Good morning.
Thank you. Yeah, we led a big coup. Take over the Young Republicans, but no, I'm just kidding. A good friend of mine, Tony Brigida, who was the chair, who stepped down last night to take on some other endeavors, business-related, family-related. They just had their third child, so happy to take over for him, but I've got big shoes to fill.
You do, and you got a lot of good work hopefully going on in the future. We'll get to that here coming up in a few minutes, but let's talk about Laura Kelly. Your initial reaction when you saw this story about her middle-of-the-road PAC being launched?
It makes sense. She still has a political future in the state. Obviously, she's termed out as governor, but now people are looking to, what she's going to do next. We're going to have Senate campaigns coming up. Who's going to take over for her as governor? David Tolan's a big name that's thrown around a lot. And it just makes sense. Kathleen Sebelius had a similar PAC called the Blue Stem Fund that was a thorn in conservative sides for years. Lots of out-of-state money. I think a lot of those same donors will matriculate over to Kelly. Do
you think that Kelly can have more success than Sebelius had with her PAC? And if so, why?
I think so. I mean, the landscape's changed. The Democratic Party back then had a kind of lacked talent a little bit, but Kansas is kind of on the map politically for Democrats nationally. They're hiring more talent, better talent, and we're lacking with that locally on our side. So it's a playground for sure for the Democrats.
So you think that this is more so than when Sebelius was doing it, that Kelly, and she's, anyone that says Laura Kelly doesn't know what she's doing or isn't politically savvy, I think is not giving her enough credit. You think that she can launch something that can take Kansas from just being a state that's still red, that happens to have a Democratic governor and happens to have, this Johnson County area that is turning blue. You think that they can turn this potentially into a blue-ish state, or is that too far?
I wouldn't say entirely blue, but there's concerning trends, obviously not just here in Johnson County, but Sedgwick County as well. That red wall in Johnson County just continues to get pushed farther and farther and farther back. And she's not the only PAC that's been established. Former staffers of hers have now set up a 501c4 advocacy arm. So Kelly's money, that'll be disclosed. We'll know where that money's coming from. The 501c4 will have no clue. We probably won't even know really what they're doing and what they're up to. And it's called, you like the name of her PAC. This new one's called Kansas Coalition for Common Sense.
Oh, really? Kansas Coalition for Common Sense.
And so that makes two, but there's actually been, I've been aware of this PAC for a while. There's a third one that's in the works as well that has the same focus and mission set, is more focused towards electing moderate Republicans. So we'll have kind of three different groups out there working to really undermine the conservative majority that we have in the legislature.
Okay, so the Kansas GOP then, there's obviously some infighting there, but I feel like now's the time to just get everybody together and realize the big picture here, everyone's got to be on the same page on, right? And what does that look like?
Well, I agree, and I hope that's the case. That's what I've always been pushing for. Even when Mike Brown took over his chair, he certainly has his detractors, and they're very vocal. And, they have some, I think, fair complaints over his current leadership. But I at least encourage everyone to give him 6 months. Give him a 6-month runway, and if he fails after that, then jump on board. But that hasn't been the case. And really, at the end of the day, I told some local political folks this, that we're really focused on all the infighting right now, but 99% of voters, except for maybe your listeners, really don't have a clue what's going on within the party internally, don't care what's going on.
Don't care.
And we just need to push forward.
I mean, I don't spend a lot of time on this because honestly, most people don't care. They just don't. I mean, there's a very small segment of people that care about the infighting, but the vast majority of this listener base does not care. Even this listener base doesn't care.
Right.
So it's like, in the end, people want to know, are you doing what needs to be done to get what they perceive to be the right people elected? That's all they care about, for the most part.
That's right. But, we're politics, I like to say, is like high school, but for adults. A lot of drama, a lot of pot stirring. It's great. It's great if you like real life drama and you just don't want to get your fix watching Real Housewives.
Yeah, well, you know what? Check out Real Housewives, because this stuff right now is too important with the amount of money that's being thrown at getting potentially moderate, to use their word, Democrats and Republicans elected. I mean, what's that going to look like anyway? I mean, when she says we want to elect moderate Republicans, I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of pieces of bipartisan legislation that Laura Kelly vetoed this past legislative session.
That's true. You know, the big push is going to be for Medicaid expansion. That's something that they've been pushing since 2008, haven't been successful at. And, you know, the other portion is going to be school funding, but more in rural areas, pushing for that. But outside of that, you know, yeah, there's a lot of bipartisan legislation that's been passed that, you know, even Democrats agree with, but she just wants, you know, the Democrats have all the momentum on their side. It used to be they would play the game of, well, you know what, we'll tolerate the moderate Republican over the conservative Republican. But that's gone now.
Yeah, they don't have to.
They will support a Democrat over a moderate Republican all day long, even if it's in a more red district, because, again, the momentum's on their side. And it just plays better in D.C. You know, most states, you know, North Carolina, for example, competitive state house and state senate races go for over $1 million. In Kansas, you know, even for a state senate race, you're lucky, you know, even with outside spending, if that surpasses $250,000, and that's rare even today. So if you can tell D.C. donors, like, hey, we can really take over a state, and you give me $2 million, I'll go get it done. You know, money in Kansas goes a lot farther than in other states.
That's a good point. Dustin Morris is joining us. He was just elected a Kansas Young Republican chairman, local political consultant. Before I get to what you got going on here after your election last night, Johnson County in particular, as it continues to grow at the rate that we've seen the last 2 decades, and the politics of the county continue to shift, what do you think the county party combined with the state party can do to alleviate what has been a rough few years, if anything?
Yeah, I would say, you know, we had a good year in 2021. We caught the Democrats off guard a little bit. You know, we elected some good conservatives to the Olathe School Board, the Blue Valley School Board. But COVID was really the driving issue for that. And at the end of the day, voters are very visual with the issues that they're concerned about, whether it's, you know, in Overland Park with the chip and seal issue, it's visual. So with COVID in 21, it was the masking issues, it's kids being out of school. And what I'm concerned about is a lot of those parents who came around to our candidates because they were pushing the message of just common sense, get the kids back into the classroom.
Yeah.
That issue's gone now. You know, life is back to normal for them. You know, they have, you know, their kids back in school. You know, for some it's daycare. So the problem's resolved.
Yeah.
Everything's back to normal. So what's the issue now that we can push? And, you know, we're falling back on, well, again, we've been pushing for a long time the standards issue, you know, falling curriculum, you know, kids are falling behind. But, you know, KPI's been pushing that for over a decade. You know, we've pushed it as a party, you know, for different elections. And we just keep hitting a brick wall with that issue. And I tell folks, you know, if that was really something that parents were concerned with, we would be here. They'd be up in arms about it. But also, you know, some parents just don't want to say, you know, yeah, maybe my kid is an underperformer.
That's a good point.
They're not going to stand up and shout that from the rooftops and saying, like, I want change. Not many of them will.
Yeah. Okay, so then what's the answer?
I think we just have to focus on, you know, the teacher shortage issue. Like, we have to push that and say, you know, we want smaller classroom sizes because, you know, for Blue Valley in particular, there's 2 candidates that are running that actually took their kids out of private schools, private Catholic schools, to send them to Blue Valley schools because they felt that they would get better value. That's something that doesn't happen. We always hear the opposite, that kids are being taken out of public schools for private schools. But Blue Valley and Olathe, and even Shawnee Mission for the most part, you are getting private school education for a public education dollars. And at the end of the day, it's kind of, we just have it too good here in Johnson County. We're kind of like an oasis in the Midwest. We just don't have beaches or consistently nice weather.
All right, so what do you got going on? The Kansas Young Republican chairman, you got elected to that last night. What did you do? What did you overpromise the Kansas Young Republicans?
No, I've been joking with everybody. I'm just the smartest sucker that didn't say no.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It definitely. I've served in other leadership positions throughout the party. I've always been one to kick the door open and push young Republicans forward. And that's certainly my goal. I'm just filling in for a term. We'll have our reelection next year in February. Certainly not even planning on running for reelection yet. I want to accomplish a few things, and one of those is having a greater presence for young Republicans within the party. I've felt that when younger people do come to our events, they are social clubs. It's for you to interact and find people that have and share the same values as you. But I think people also look selfishly at, well, what can I get out of this? If I'm going to put in my time, talent, money, you name it, what do I get out of it? And one of those priorities that I have and want to see pushed, and I'll get input from all of our young Republican members, not just the executive committee, is on policy issues. What can we push next session at the legislative level to say, hey, these are priorities, these are values, this is legislation that young Republicans under 40 value and want to see pushed. And one of those things is, we always talk about and hear the complaints about rising home values. I've frankly seen all the proposals to address that have really been focused on people over 65, the retirees, but we're not really addressing that housing shortage. We're throwing up apartments left and right. But I've talked to you about this before. It's like we always hear, oh, well, millennials, they want to live in downtown living. Sure, maybe in Kansas City or Chicago, maybe Dallas, Austin, there. Nobody wants to live that's under 40 in an apartment in downtown Olathe.
Nope.
It's not the most hip happening place.
No.
You got the county jail, the courthouse.
Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. If you're in Olathe Overland Park, you want to be there because you want to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
If you want that, you go to downtown Kansas City. Well, that's good. That's good stuff there, Dustin. Dustin Morris, local political consultant, elected last night, chairman of the Kansas Young Republicans. Appreciate you being in studio, man.
Thanks, Pete. We'll need to get you signed up with a membership.
You bet. He's already shaking me down for $1. Look at that. Good political consultant reaching into my pocket on the way out the door.